Hail and well met, Captain Sassacus. How fares thee in the land of Clevelonia?
Oh, no, we're not going to do the whole review like that, are we? Oh, my God. I don't know what half the things you just said were.
Well, I wanted to, seriously. But usually, when you start talking funny like that, like, whatever it's, everybody's like, talk like a pirate, you could get about two phrases out, and then you're like,
Arg. Yo ho ho.
Let's talk about Lord of the Rings, War in the North, which is a new game that just came out last week in probably the worst possible time I can imagine.
Yeah, especially for a game like this that's certainly going to be overshadowed by all of the other much larger games.
Yeah, I had it on our list to look at, but then we've got Uncharted, Battlefield, Modern Warfare, Skyrim. Just everywhere you turn these days, there's something huge coming out. And I kind of put it down because I thought, well, this looks like kind of a crappy game, and we could take a look at it and make fun of it.
Right.
But you know what? This isn't really all that crappy of a game.
No, I actually really enjoyed it, to be honest. I had a lot of fun playing this game.
Yeah, I picked it up, and it was kind of a slow starter, but it definitely picked up after the very beginning and really kind of held its own. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that this was the first game that we've seen in a long time made by Snowblind Studios.
Ah, okay.
Who are the guys who made Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance and Champions of Norath. Sure. And yeah, so they've got like kind of a long story tradition of they also made Justice League Heroes, of taking these franchises and then, converting them into kind of a decent third-person action game.
Yeah.
The only thing that kind of bugs me about this game, and it's something that's, you can't really hold it against this game specifically, and I don't know, Kevin, you tell me if this is something that gets on your nerves as well. But ever since the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies, it doesn't seem like anybody can make anything even remotely attached to Lord of the Rings without using the exact art style that he used in the movies.
I was thinking that in the way of the music in this game. I thought the music was well done in the game. I thought to myself, there's this doom over the land, and they're playing this grand music all the time where you feel like you're marching to victory, essentially, and it's kind of like, I wish it was just a little bit more solemn, I think. And, in the graveyard part, there's some of that. But, for the most part, yeah, you're right. Everything is kind of taking its cues from Peter Jackson's movie. And it works here, but you do kind of wish that somebody would kind of be a little bit more original with it and take it in a different direction.
Well, I think the reason that it stands out so much with this game is the premise, and you can almost see the thinking from the guys who developed this game. Like, we want to make a Lord of the Rings game. It's like, well, everybody's already made like 6 different versions of all the events of the movies and the books. They were making Lord of the Rings games before those movies even came out. Everybody's played those games, so we want to create our own new story, but we want it to have all the gravitas of Lord of the Rings. So what are we going to do? Well, what if there were these other guys? These guys that nobody'd ever heard of before, and they had this dire mission that nobody'd ever talked about in the North, where like nothing was really supposed to be going on. And so the game basically follows these 3 heroes: an elven wizard, a ranger, and a dwarven champion, Eredon, Farron, and Andriel, which, God, I tell you what, about halfway through this game, I was starting to kind of, my brain was starting to just like not be able to focus on anybody. You've got, all these people with their Middle-earth names, and at a certain point started to kind of tune it out.
Right, like the elves were like, they call Rivendell something else, and so they're telling them to go to Rivendell. They even asked them at one point, they're like, what do you? I've never even heard of this place. Oh, it's Rivendell, and it's like, okay, why don't you just call it Rivendell?
Goddamn pretentious elves! Just call it what it is. Right. The plot of the game basically follows these 3 heroes, and in the North there is, just like you had Saruman in the movies, who's kind of like the right hand of Sauron. Here you've got this guy named Agandar, and he's kind of like the left foot of Sauron. He's really biting his style. He's got this stupid helmet with all the spikes coming off the top of it.
Right.
He's kind of like Sauron's biggest fan, in my opinion. Like, really, he's been to all of his concerts. He's got all the DVDs. Like, Middle Earth is really in a bad position because apparently there are leagues and leagues of orcs in the south and a huge amount of orcs all hanging out in the north as well. And mankind is just settled in this really horrible fucking position right between these 2 huge amounts of orcs. So of course you got, orcs and trolls and all this nonsense come out, which is great because you've got plenty of cannon fodder. And the game follows these 3 characters through what turned out to be a very long adventure. I started playing it and I thought, I'm about 8 hours in. I'm probably close to being done. I'd say that I probably dumped at least 20 hours into this game, between 12 and 20.
Combat is especially long for a hack and slash. I mean, you go into these moments like a lot of these games where you will enter like a ruin or something, and they'll be like, they've locked the gate, and then you've got to like fight the monsters and everything, the goblins that come, and they come in waves, and I mean, you wipe out like 3 waves, which might be normal for a game, and then you wipe out like 6 waves, and then you're starting to get around like 10 waves of the same monsters coming at you, and you're like, is this going to end? Am I supposed to do something else? Like, am I, is this one of those things like it's a monster generator and they're just going to keep coming? But eventually you do wipe them out. But it is like combat can be fairly long, while you're going through it.
The thing that I felt also seemed to kind of elongate the combat was that there's not really any kind of enemy in this game that goes down with just one hit.
Right. Even
with the strongest of the melee guys, you have to hit every enemy like 3 or 4 times to kill them. So they send out these waves of just like, these real low-level little goblin guys, and each one of them takes 2 or 3 hits, but then they throw like 14 of them at you at a time.
Right, you're always getting hit. I mean, I died a lot in this game. I mean, there is the ability to block and everything, but they are very, like, I played it on normal. I didn't play it on easy, but they're very chintzy with the health potions and things. And, just a lot of times, I had spells and everything when I was playing the female wizard, because you can basically play the 3 different characters, depending on like every time you go to to move on in the game, they let you like switch it up.
Yeah.
But I find myself dying quite often because there just wasn't enough stuff to keep me alive. Combat was particularly ferocious when you start fighting like large like boss monsters, and then just to throw things in, they send like another horde of other little minion monsters around that just constantly like mess with you the entire time. But luckily, you can quickly. If you do fall in battle, if you're one of the other guys in your party reaches you in time, they just revive you and you're right back in the battle.
Yeah, definitely. I found that as far as the combat goes, that the longer you play the game, the easier it gets, because they do have a pretty substantial upgrade system where you can put points into your character stats. You can buy new armor. You can, they've got these kind of Diablo-esque trees that you can spec points into to boost your special attacks and things like that. So by the end of the game, I was playing the Ranger Eridon, and by the end of the game, this is a pretty effective killing machine, but it's got a real kind of steep early learning curve that once you get used to fighting, just these hordes and hordes and hordes of guys, it can get to be really satisfying, especially because they've got some nice little places where you get the slow motion chopping the guy's head off.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they had a nice little critical hit system going there. You can just wipe guys out.
Yeah.
In fun ways.
And I tell you what this game reminded me a lot of was that game Hunted the Demon's Forge Jace Murphy and I played earlier this year, except this did everything that Hunted needed to do. Like, there's a whole system of equipment and equipment upgrades and all kinds of different armor and weapons and spells and things that you can get so that you've got this satisfying third-person combat, which in the end, at the end of the day is pretty simplistic. It's just a heavy attack and a light attack. But
were you able to equip the other guys in your party during the game, or only when you played them? Because I played it. To be fair, I played this on. Technically it was PC, but I played it on OnLive. Mm-hmm. I wanted to try to play it on OnLive, which worked rather well for me. But OnLive was void of instructions, or I think there's a way to read them, but it's like on the TV, and I didn't. There wasn't like any sort of training in the control scheme, so I wasn't sure if I was missing something or what. Because you'll get like 2 pieces of armor, like you'll be wearing a piece of armor, and then you might have one. You might say to yourself, "Well, I'll just give it to one of these other guys," and I would give it to one of those other guys, and lots of other equipment. But then when I switched to them, apparently all that stuff was gone, and I was like, "Well, that's weird. What happened to it?" They just ate it or something. They never put it on or anything.
I had the exact same problem. Like, I started the game and I would get weapons that were specific to the other guys, and I'd be like, here, have this, computer friend. And then I figured out that there's no way to equip the computer's equipment. They kind of automatically level themselves up, and they kind of do it randomly too, because I would see, like, I'd be playing the game and they would be using one set of attacks, and I'd quit the game and I'd come back and it seems like they'd just gone to an entirely different direction as far as specs go. So I finally just started keeping everything. I was like, screw you guys. You're not going to put on this plus $2,000 helmet I've got, I'm going to sell that shit. Like,
so maybe that's what it is. Maybe the computer just is running, because like when I switched to them, all the levels that I had leveled was available to them as well, and I would level them up. But again, their equipment was just standard, and I don't know. I mean, I just found it to be odd.
Well, I think that particular feature was in there for if you're playing online. If you're playing with two other human people, you can hand people equipment that would be better for them, but not really so much. Excuse me, when you're playing with the computer, yeah. And I tried to play this game online. I waited for about 30 minutes in a lobby trying to find a game, and I couldn't find one. Once again, I don't necessarily think that the game is broken. I just think that everybody's playing Battlefield and Modern Warfare and Uncharted and Gears and all the other games that have come out the last month or so. But it seems like the sort of thing that would be. I've talked to a lot of people over the years who have really said they wanted to play another Dark Alliance style game because that was a really fun, just kind of playing with your friends type of game. And I think this would definitely work for that. It's just at the moment, there's not a hell of a lot of interest in it, which
right.
Once again is a shame.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's just another generic Lord of the Rings game. But then you sit down and you actually play it, and it's a long game and it's a good brawl, and I had a lot of fun with it. And the multiplayer aspects, whether if you had a friend and they could jump in with you, I think you would have a great time playing this, as a game. I mean, overall, I have hardly any complaints except it does feel a little bit low budget. It might have worked out better if it was a discount title, like one of those ones they sell for like $40 instead of $60. It might have done better.
Yeah. I mean, the graphics were decent, but nothing special. I mean, they got their point across and they kept the frame rate up. But there are instances where I saw stuff clipped through other stuff that they weren't the highest res textures in the world. When they zoom in on the characters' faces and the dialogue sequences, they're a little dead. They didn't have that level of polish that you'll see off of a AAA game. But it got the point across, and that was all it really needed to do. I tell you, the best part of that whole game was that giant eagle Belaram that you get. Yeah. I don't understand how they're making like these elves and men, and they even have cameos from like Gandalf and Frodo and all this stuff. And every one of them looks like this horrible wax dummy face, but this bird is like the most expressive character I've ever seen in a video game. All of his little feathers individually moving, and just there's one point where the bird narrows his eyes when he was talking about something he didn't like, and I was just like, that bird is pissed, man.
It was really cool, and you can kind of control the bird and have it attack targets and things, and it's like they did there's a part where like you tell them to, or you ask the bird for help for these archers, and he blows up the whole gate, and as you walk through it. I mean, lots of little things like that in this game make it a lot of fun. I had a good sense of exploration. It is fairly linear. There are a few moments where you can kind of go above ground or below ground, that kind of thing. But on the whole, it's it's just fun to sit and like play. You can just throw it on and have a time with it. It's not like I gotta be all committed to understanding a whole bunch of different moves and everything here. It's pretty straightforward, and I don't know, I really kind of liked it.
It's not like you're going to be playing Lord of the Rings: War of the North in the next like video game tournament.
Right.
$30,000 prize for whoever can get to the end of level 2 fast.
Yeah, no speed runs are going to be on for this game, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, and outside of all that stuff, they also have a pretty robust. They have a few not really multiplayer, but like horde mode style arenas where you go in and they throw wave after wave of enemies at you, and once you kind of get to the end of the game, you can start over with a slightly harder difficulty level, do a new game plus, keep leveling up. So, I mean, I'd say there's a fair amount going on here. At the end of the day, I don't know if I could recommend it at a full $60, but I could definitely recommend it as a discount title or a rental.
Yeah, I would say definitely, like if you could get it for like $40 a high buy, I guess, or is that what we call it? That would be pretty good right there. And definitely you could rent it as well. Like I said, I got it on OnLive. OnLive had a deal going where your first game was $1, so I got it pretty cheap. But I mean, even I was coming into this thinking it was going to be crap. And it really kind of took me back and said, this is a quality game. So, good stuff.
Fair enough. I think that the only thing that was really that I was really disappointed about with this game is at the very end of the game, after you finally win and you save the north of Middle Earth. They keep having to put that modifier on there. It's like, we've saved Middle Earth in the north. The three main characters all go back to Rivendell to, rest and relax and savor their victory. And all I could think about was these three heroes who have saved half the world. And everybody's like, "Oh, Frodo, you're my hero. Oh, Frodo, you were so good." They're just something like, "Man, that midget just threw a ring in a volcano. I killed 10,000 orcs."
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, you single-handedly stopped all the hordes from killing Frodo, Frodo should be your bitch from this point forward, but no.